Okay.
I think we're live because we got the notice, so we're good.
Okay. I need to mute my YouTube. Good. So that I don't get feedback. Okay. Good. Apologies. Is Susan a community member of the committee as well? Yeah, good. Okay, very good. All right, if you just bear with me one moment. Very good. Okay. Apologies. Just want to get these new folks in. And again, Laura and Jennifer are also members or members of the public?
Laura, just for clarity, the Reading board has appointed Chirag and Laura as members of this committee.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. And do we know Jennifer Neal is also a member of the community?
She's a community
side?
member of the committee.
Very
Yep.
good. Thank you. All right. We will, as the person who called this meeting, I'll call our meeting to order. And just for a quick walkthrough of the agenda. So we called this meeting for the purpose of electing a committee chair and to approve a regular meeting schedule for 2022. There's urgency to that because for 2022, our regular meetings have to be submitted. That schedule of those meetings have to be submitted by Monday. So this is our opportunity to approve that schedule. We'll get to that in a moment, but a part of the reason why this was such a last minute thing to call this meeting earlier this week is because we don't have a chair for the committee. And so without a chair and somebody to sort of make sure that we're doing this kind of administrative work, it sort of fell to no one. And I wasn't crazy about that. So called us together. So the first item that we have on our agenda is to actually elect a chair who will run the rest of the meeting. Then we'll jump to public comment, committee member comment, and then get into that discussion and possible action about the regular meeting schedule for 2022. I do want to note that that Dr. McKinnon has looked at opportunities to connect with some of the experts that we talked to before in interpreting statistics and sort of all that great work that we were doing. And possibly having a meeting in February, but that meeting in February would fall short of the 30 days necessary for it to be considered a regular meeting. So we can still have that meeting, but it will be a special meeting. And so we'll notice that whenever we get closer to that date, we can notice that. But today we'll be able to approve the meetings that will be categorized as regular meetings. All right. With that, I've asked Chris to help me make sure that we run this election of a committee chair in the sort of appropriate legalistic way. So,
All right. So you want me to just sort of take over, John?
If you can, thank you.
All right. And just for clarity for folks, the charge of the committee makes 6 members of the committee voting members. There are 2 appointees from each of the 3 boards, in addition to the assistant superintendent for curriculum and instruction. And as a matter of policy, the board chairs sit ex officio as voting members who do not count for quorum. So we look to accept nominations for the position of chair of this committee for the going forward biennium and thereon. And I would look for any of the members of the committee to make such nominations. Jenny?
I want to nominate Devin.
There's
Devin
a nomination
Weiler Easton.
for Devin. Devin, do you accept the nomination?
I accept the nomination.
I see Cheryl's hand up. Cheryl?
I was going to nominate Devin as well, but I can second Jenny's if that's the appropriate order.
Right. There's no need for a second to the nomination, but it's certainly appreciated. Are there any further nominations for the position of chair? Seeing none, we'll close the floor for nominations and we'll take a vote by, it can be by acclamation as long as there's no objection, even though we're on Zoom. As long as there are no objections, all those in favor signify so by raising your hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any objections?
Aye.
Seeing
Oh.
no objections, it's deemed to be by unanimous consent, and Devin is named the chair of this committee, and I'm happy to turn the rest of the meeting over to her.
Thank you, Chris.
Great.
The easiest thing we do all year.
That's correct.
I hope it's the hardest, honestly, but good. Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Cheryl. I really appreciate it. And thank you to the committee for the support. I appreciate that. So next on the agenda is public comment.
I don't believe we have any members of, no members of the public. No.
Committee comment, committee member comment.
Congrats.
Thanks, Susan.
Just briefly welcoming the new folks to this committee as things turn over. Thank you for stepping up and joining this important work.
Great, seeing no additional board member comment, we will move to discussion and possible action on the calendar for the DEI task force for 2022. And so, John, I think you said you had a.
I do, and it's nothing fancy, but it's just something to work off of. So bear with me. And I think what we were considering, and this is not meant to I don't know, cow us into any position, but I think we had talked about the possibility of setting up regular meetings on a quarterly basis. And if we ever need to meet more regularly or for any special purpose, we're always able to call a special meeting. That's not an issue. But that we have these regular meetings on the agenda that, sort of working towards those dates has a certain amount of value and sort of giving us milestones throughout the year. I asked the administration whether or not there was any sort of preference for the sort of when that cadence starts, and suggested to a March, June, September, December. And they didn't have any issue with that. I think, again, there's also some value in the sort of right before or right sort of around when school is letting out, and then as school is letting back in, and to sort of sort of the milestones that are happening there can be useful. So first, does that March, June, September, December make sense to everyone? Then I think the question is whereabouts in those months is the best sort of best spot to land on. I know we have. Yep.
I have slight concerns about December because things get messy quickly with holidays and commitments.
Mm-hmm.
But I have possibly more concerns about March as a month. I am looking at what our first selectman has put together as sort of the consolidated Reading budget meetings for March. The first Reading board, the 3rd Region 9, the 10th Region 9, the 15th Region 9, the 21st Board of Selectmen, the 22nd annual budget hearing, which would then probably result in the 28th being a Board of Finance meeting. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There are potentially 7 different budget-related meetings that could require administration and board member attendance already.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I just want to be cognizant of that as far as impositions are concerned.
John, can I ask a question?
Please.
What about the timing of when survey go out and when survey information is available? Like that we time ourselves so that we're either, basically, I would think we want to be on the receiving end of it, or sort of like after whoever is analyzing and putting all that information together.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I don't know the answer to that, and especially how it's going to happen this year. I don't know if anybody else has any insight into that.
Trying to remember when the climate surveys are coming out, because that was the last directive of the last DEI task force, was to try to integrate whatever questions as applicable in DEI into the climate survey. So to Jenny's point, I would want that to be integrated into whatever the launch of that is. I don't know if the respective administrations, plural, in each of the 5 buildings are starting that now and when they're starting that, but
Mhm.
but perhaps there's a window in April that would be after the budget referendums, but before we could actually get some input into
Yeah.
the climate surveys. And I'd want to know from the administration what's come out of the climate work that's being done at the building levels.
Yeah. Yep. I wonder if, I don't think we have to be beholden to exact spacing, sort of one every 3 months. I think we could actually have we could do an April meeting. I think a July meeting is not a great idea, but I think a June meeting can work. I like September, if that works for others. And then December, if we
Or
move
even-
that to November or something like that, perhaps.
So one of the things we talked about was just also if we're making recommendations to our respective boards, that making sure that we met before, like around the kickoff of budget season. Is so if there were recommendations, I think for like a typical, I guess this is 2022, so I would say December would make sense because then we can make those recommendations. I know it's hard with with all the season, like all the stuff, but I think December, and then if it got pushed, it would be early January, which would still give us time for the budget if there's any recommendations.
And if you want to make recommendations back, you also have to key into the tri-board cycle, which is October, January, May. And so if you want to bring something to the May tri-board, you probably want to be meeting in April or May to lead into that.
Yep.
Right.
So
The school
April,
climate,
go ahead.
there I go. Sorry, my phone is dying.
Hmm.
The climate survey comes out in the spring. I'm just trying to think. I'm on the committee. I don't know if they gave a date or not. I feel like we got an email, Devin. Did he say a date by any chance? Do you remember?
It's gonna, let me look.
They just sent
See.
out, didn't they,
Okay.
long ago?
They sent something out. I just know it's spring. Let me see.
Yeah, I think it just says spring or like
Okay.
spring. So I think if we had, but I think by June, there would be at least, and again, I don't want to speak for the administration, so, but June typically, I would think if we had them in the second, like kind of right before school ends, there might be opportunity to
Right.
actually discuss some of the results, which
I have a question about the climate surveys themselves. Can you guys hear me?
We
Yep.
can, but before we go too deep on that, we do want to be careful because we will get into FOIA trouble if we dig into specifics about the surveys as opposed to simply for the purposes of understanding timing for setting the regular meeting schedule.
This is tied to that.
Yeah, good.
Because the conversation, as I understand it, that we've been having, and I apologize for being late. The conversation we've had is like the timing of the climate surveys, right? Never mind.
Okay. All right. So where are we at? It sounds like March is a bad idea. April maybe works fine. June and September maybe work fine. What do we think about for December?
I would keep December because I think November gets hard too. Like I think it would be too hard at the very beginning of November.
You think it'd be too hard in the beginning of December?
I think the beginning of like December 7th, like the first Wednesday might be fine for budget recommendations. And then that tees us up for a January tri-board meeting.
So you think
April,
December and January or just December?
Can
Well-
a part of our schedule include 2023, Chris?
I don't think so.
Nah. Because that'd be nice if we could go way
I
out.
think we're really talking about, is it April, June, September, December? Is that kind of what we're,
April, June, September, December. Yeah, that's what I thought we were at, but
and it's going to end up being early April, later June, probably. Although late June gets to be a complete mess too.
right.
Yeah, June is, I think June's almost worse than December in terms of
calendar.
we do late?
wrapping up the year and meetings, and things just.
Is it actually better early in June? Like a
Well,
June
if
1st?
if the climate survey is a May thing, are we going to have anything to look at by early June? I would doubt it.
What about
that's-
We
like
don't
maybe June 8th?
know.
And again, we can do a special meeting. We can, I mean, like, I love the idea of let's align this so that it happens to work nicely with the climate survey being available. But if it's not, then we just do it. We schedule a special meeting for that.
Right. And there are good things to talk about in June, just about like close of year,
Right.
climate survey climate committee conversations. So even like SAN survey data, there's other potential information topics to discuss.
And if you meet in April and bring forward recommendations to the tri-board in May, the tri-board may give you more work to do in June.
No.
Sure.
Yeah.
Jenny, does your concern about June, is it any better if we put it towards the front of June? Like a June 1st or June 8th? I'm also just assuming
Oh,
Wednesdays,
definitely.
but
I mean, I think
Okay.
maybe this is just being like a teacher mindset.
there's
but-
nothing wrong with that.
If you don't, I think there's like a 2-week buffer sort of, between kind of major turnover and things. And I think there's a couple weeks in June before like we meet and there's still a couple weeks to the end of the year, it's probably okay. Or sort of like December,
Mhm.
if you're within that 2-week window before the holiday, I don't know, it's like an energetic meltdown of circumstances. Things just get crazy and that, it's going on at the classroom level. The administrators are dealing with it too.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking about them at different points in the year, trying to be present and mindful and join us and, be thoughtful and processing information. And you're also talking about like in, December and some of these other vacations are fixed.
Mhm.
June is variable depending on, when we
days.
actually get out of school.
Right.
But
And there's
long
a- there's
answer
an-
to your question, I think the earlier in the month, the
Yeah.
better.
Good.
And there's another sort of element to this too, which is that if statutes don't change, these meetings are all going to be in person starting in June because there's not going to be a purely remote option. So,
Yeah.
and I think there's a conversation to be had about whether or not our next regular meeting, whether it's March or April, or even the February meeting with Dr. Glass, ought to be in person also.
Right.
Agreed. So
Okay.
if we on set, then if we think about when to do these meetings in the month, do we want to have like a common day, like the first Wednesday or the second Wednesday of these months, or should we?
I'm going to arbitrarily place some of these on here and we'll play, I don't know, what is it? Bingo? Is it Keno? I don't know.
Do I recall Wednesday being a challenge for administration, John?
Oh.
I don't remember that. I think that was the day that we were doing these. I don't
It
remember.
was the day we were doing those, and I thought it was
for Dr.
routine
McKinnon.
challenge for Dr. McKinnon.
For Dr.
right?
McKinnon was a challenge. So Thursdays, is that better or worse?
I'm just
for
saying, if
everyone?
we can be considerate of that and agree
Agreed.
to Thursdays, that might be better. Unless we just claim the fourth Tuesday to follow the board cadence.
That doesn't work well for us in June and
No,
Yeah.
right. Yep. So I'm just laying these out. This does not mean here's the schedule, but if we said first Thursday,
Yeah, which would be the 7th, right, for April.
Right.
And we said in June could be the 2nd or the 9th.
mhm. It's also Jenny, I think December is also better earlier, right?
the 7th is the night before we go into a spring recess in the schools. There's a half day on the 8th and then a week off in April. I'll be here, but I just
Right.
that could be
Yeah.
a challenge for people.
I don't remember, I don't mean to exclude him, obviously, but does Dr. McKinnon need to be present at these meetings?
I think he intends to be sort of have a sort of fulsome participation in these. But yeah, I think it's a good point because it, depending on superintendent versus the assistant superintendent joining.
Are Mondays a possibility?
Mondays would work well for me.
as opposed to later in the week? Anybody?
Mondays at the
I would-
fronts of month are better than Mondays at the backs of month with other conflicts.
Say that one more
That's-
time.
like-
Chris.
Mondays in the first 2 weeks of months work. Mondays in the second 2 weeks run into issues with other meetings in Reading. There's finance and selectmen
Mhm.
meeting the third and fourth Mondays.
So for instance, the 4th of April, the 6th of June, maybe the 5th, although the
That's
5th
Labor
of
Day.
September, that's Labor Day. Yep. That's why it's red. So then you could shift to the 12th, which maybe isn't such a bad thing because then you're, literally the first, instead of the first or first and a half week of school, you've got a couple of weeks under your belt.
Yep.
So you go the first non-holiday Monday of each. That actually lays out nicely. And whoops.
Although April 4th, there's a Region 9 district hearing.
That's 45 seconds though, right?
Yeah, that's all of, we just have to pick a right time. I
Okay.
mean, there's a Board of Finance, Chris and Reading for budget, if needed.
That's the fallback on April 4th at the moment.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. I haven't checked the Eastern, I'm checking the Eastern calendar. I'm not the Eastern Board of
I mean,
Finance.
push comes to
Did
shove.
Thursdays
I don't-
only have one conflict?
Yeah,
If we don't have to do Thursdays, I have a class Thursday, so ideally, if a Monday's work, that would be better for me. But of course, whatever works best for the group.
So
I have a
April.
standing meeting on the first Mondays, but would the second Mondays work with the other meetings?
Yeah, the meetings in Reading tend to be the third and fourth Mondays. So the first or second Mondays would both work.
Yeah, the second Mondays I think are better because I think the first Monday in Easton are Board of Finance meetings, if I remember.
then we're moving
Then June gets gnarly because we're getting too close.
last.
yeah.
We could
April,
June
April,
or
And
December.
it doesn't have to be the first or the second or whatever. We could randomly pick, I mean, not randomly, but we could pick and
We could choose
whatever
these.
day.
We can
Right.
choose these 4 Mondays and call it a day. And we
Right.
can have special
Yep.
meetings whenever we need to. We don't
That's
need to separate forever.
That's right.
I
But
like it.
we should pick a physical location for where these committees meetings are held conventionally.
Yes. So hold on. The 11th is going to be spring break then, right? If the 7th
That is-
was
That
the
is
day before.
that is correct.
So this guy, let's do that.
But then we have to just watch the time on that because of the Region 9 meeting, unless we go to the 7th.
Unless you hold the meeting at Barlow.
Oh, or we could do that too.
And I'm
That's-
wondering
that's
whether
the
these
question
meetings
on
ought to be in the
Actually, I
Barlow
was going to
room.
suggest Barlow anyway.
I think getting these meetings back in person or in person ever would be a great idea.
Good. Time 7:30. I know there was some push to move to 7 o'clock, but I don't have a preference. 7 o'clock, 7:30, either one's fine with me.
What do we anticipate the average length to be? Or is that? Never mind.
I don't know how to answer that.
Okay.
I'll leave that up to Devin, who's going to run a tight meeting and have us in and out in 90 minutes every time.
Right.
Real sergeant, in and out.
Good
Beatrix, I
time.
think you just offered, what about 7 o'clock?
Oh, I did?
No, I'm just.
I'm not gonna say another word.
No. Does that work for people? Is 7 o'clock too early?
Yeah, I love the earlier the better here.
Yeah.
7 o'clock is
Yeah.
kind of a bit difficult with work for me,
Yeah.
particularly not being virtual. In
Mhm.
fact, it just makes things a lot harder and
So you-
possibly impossible.
You would still be able to participate in the meetings virtually.
Okay.
I mean, not to say that like that's
I mean,
the
that's
ideal,
not
but
ideal. Yeah.
and we have actually had some Easton meetings where people start, they join via Zoom and then sort of walk into the room after about 30 minutes or so, and it works fine. So what do we think? That like this is the same conversation we had in Easton a couple months ago when we were talking about the regular schedule, and we talked about the 7 and 7:30. We opted for 7:30, but I don't want to influence it either way. Like,
We had the same conversation and opted for 7 in Reading. So
Yeah.
Weird is, this is odd because the Region 9 annual district hearing is on the calendar for 7:30 on the 4th. but it's not on the ER9 calendar, so I don't know which notice to go by, but we'd have to move that to 7:30 because frankly, we can't have a DEI task force meeting that's half an hour. But
Right.
I'd have to check with whoever
I mean,
we'd have to move the Region 9 back. Or we
I-
could
I
have
wouldn't even
7:45. I don't know.
I wouldn't even say move the Region 9 back. I would say convene DEI at 7 if you need to, and recess for 5 minutes to run the district hearing and then come back in session.
What is the district hearing?
It's like the public hearing, but because they're a regional school district, they have to give the taxpayers the opportunity to, comment and
Yeah.
such, and nobody shows up.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's typically a contest every year to see how short the meeting can be.
Yeah.
Don't say that because that'll be.
Well, all the people are going to come for DEI and be like, oh, what's this?
2022.
Oh, true. Then we shouldn't break to that point.
No.
Chris, we should not break.
Yeah. Yeah.
I almost feel like we're challenging the universe.
I think you're spot on, Beatrix. I think maybe even we just go to the 6th for that, just for that one meeting. I don't think Dr. McKinnon would be too mad at us.
Why did we not like the 7th?
It's right before spring break.
I mean, there's a half day the next day, but like,
Right. Does that seem reasonable?
The 6th is good.
Okay. The 6th and the 6th again, and then the 12th and the 5th. 7 o'clock. I know that's. Sorry. Does that, I know Jennifer expressed some concern about that. Is that unworkable, or just for these 4 dates? And then, as special meetings come up, we can adjust depending on quorum. Okay.
Are we here? Is anybody hearing Devin? It seems like she's having a hard.
No, I'm here. Sorry, I'm out of. There was a crazy dog. It's fine.
Crazy dog.
And lots of kids crying. So I'm here. Yeah, these days work perfectly for me.
Okay. Okay. So, Chris, I'd be happy to make the motion, but what does that motion need to contain for this to be all?
I think you are moving to adopt a 2022 DEI Task Force regular meeting schedule of April 6th, June 6th, September 12th, December 5th, all meetings to commence at 7 p.m. at Joel Barlow High School.
Am I making that, or did you just make that?
I think I just made that.
Thank you. I second that motion. Any discussion?
Do we run into any meetings that, like 6 o'clock meetings that are going to run into a 7 o'clock start time on any of these?
And they shouldn't. Usually when we end up with those 6 o'clock meetings, we are scheduling them to connect to some other meeting, right? So we'll schedule a 6 o'clock before a tri-board meeting or something like that, because everyone's there. But no, there shouldn't be any other meetings that are colliding with these. Okay. I know Devin may be dealing with dogs. Can I call the question? Oh, no.
Yeah,
Devin,
please call the question. Sorry.
All right, thank you.
Let's call the question. So,
I think we have to do a roll call vote because we're on Zoom.
Unless there's any opposition, the
Okay.
rule allows you to take consent if there's no objection.
Great. Okay. So we could try that. Let's see if we have a unanimous vote for this, then we're all set.
John, was general consensus that earlier is better? That 7 is better than 7:30?
I think that's yes. And I think especially for teachers who would be participating in the future and
also for students.
Right. And
We
for
have students.
That's a very good point as well. And we'll kick off the process. I think we had the student application process go last year. And I think the intent is, we need to run that. We have a lot of new students, obviously new students who are eligible at the middle school level and new students who've moved to town. And we want to make sure that we're plugging into that whole process. And so we'll have that refresh of the process and put out that application process shortly. Good.
Is the application process for students only?
It's a good question, and I don't know the answer to that. I just know for sure the students, it was intended that we do that every year. So
Okay.
good question, and we'll figure out the community members as well.
Okey-doke.
Okay, so yeah, good point about earlier is better for students as well. So I think we will look for the yays for this, and if we're unanimous, then I think we're all set. So we'll call a question. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Good. Aye.
Aye.
Good. I see a support. I think we just need to see Laura.
Laura, yep.
Laura is supportive as well, and the motion passes unanimously. Very good. Thank you, everyone.
All right, so next on the agenda is, I think we saw board committee comment, and then Sharon. Any comment from that?
We actually don't have committee
There's no
member
comment.
comment at the end. I didn't add
Okay.
it there. Sorry about that.
So for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Thank you.
Any
Any
Any-
objection?
objections?
No.
We're adjourned at 6:33.
Thank you very much.
Night, everybody. Have fun in the
Thank
snow.
you.
Good night.